How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be ranking all 9 of the Star Wars films. So this is excluding Rogue One and like the spin-off films, and we're just going to be ranking the 9, the Skywalker Saga. So as you can probably tell by my surroundings, I'm a big Star Wars fan. Last ranking video I did my top 15 movies of all time, but now I'm just going to be ranking all of the Star Wars films from worst to best. This is my opinion. Okay, let me know in the comments if you agree or not. And here we go. I've done another PowerPoint. In my number 9 spot, it's my least favourite Star Wars film. You probably saw this coming. The Last Jedi. And I have good reasoning as well. There are bits of the movie that I like. For example, the Praetorian Guard battle with Rey and Kylo. That was really good. Best part in the film. Really sick battle. I love the Praetorian Guards. They look really cool. I also really liked the Executioner Trooper. They're introduced in this film, but they're only shown for like a little bit of the film. But one of my favourite stormtroopers, to be honest. I really like them. And also, of course, scenes like the first scene, the opening scene. That's really good with Poe attacking the Dreadnought. That was insane. Loved that, and all the Resistance bombers as well. Really liked that. My biggest problem with this film is probably the fact that... So, Luke Skywalker, he was a big character for me growing up, since as soon as I was introduced to Star Wars, I was introduced to the original trilogy first, and obviously Luke Skywalker. So, he was a really big character for me growing up. And he's one of my favourite characters by far. And this film just shit all over him. Like, they just turned him into like a grumpy old man in exile that like doesn't care about anything anymore. And that's just not Luke. Like, that's not how Luke would be. Like, that's not his personality. That is like not his characteristics at all. Yeah, it just really puts a bad reputation onto Luke, which I don't like. Nothing against Mark Hamill. He was just doing what the script told him to do. But yeah, and the way that he died as well, like someone as big and as essential as Luke, one of the main characters in Star Wars, should have a better death than the one he did. And the whole Canto Bite scene as well, like all of that just... So that's The Last Jedi. Next, number 8 is The Rise of Skywalker. So, you would think, because I was born in 2008, right? And I grew up, I kind of grew up with the original trilogy and the prequels, with like my dad showing many of them. But the sequels were the only movies that came out whilst I was alive, I went to see in the cinema and went to enjoy in the cinema. Right, don't get me wrong, when I first saw Rise of Skywalker, I did like it, because there are scenes that are really good. For example, Battle with Exegol scene at the end, the bit where all of the ships arrive, with Lando leading them, like all the allies across the galaxy, that was great. Actually gave me chills when I first watched it in the cinema. Even Rey exploring the old Death Star, that was kind of cool. I liked how it showed the proper ruins of the Death Star, and Rey and Kylo's fight on the Death Star as well, with the waves and stuff. It was cool up until the end, where and where they were kind of it's just not how lightsaber fights are meant to go. Like the bit where they're getting all tired and they're just boom, boom, just powerful swings, but just not fast paced. That wasn't very good. Princess Leia, again, huge character in Star Wars. Rubbish death scene. Using up all of her energy to call out to her son. Yeah, I don't know. But it's just it's the ending for Star Wars that should never have happened. The true ending to Star Wars, in my opinion, should have been Return of the Jedi ending. That was just top notch. this is not a good ending for Star Wars Skywalker Saga. I don't really like to see it as the ending. I like to see it as the alternate bad ending for Star Wars. Bringing back Palpatine as well, no point. It's just like Palpatine had such a good death scene, and they just bringing him back just kind of like made that scene pointless, which I don't like at all, because that scene is such a good and essential scene to like Anakin's character arc and the story in general. It's alright on its own, but the plot is just all over the place. I don't like it. I don't like the plot. Moving on to number 7 is Force Awakens. This is my favourite film out of the sequels. I was probably about 6 or 7 when it came out. And like, the First Order, I personally think they're really cool. Like, I like the Stormtroopers. I like Captain Phasma. Kylo Ren, he's alright, I guess. With the whole thing where he's like connected to Darth Vader and all, yeah, I don't really like that. But yeah, there was some epic scenes in this film, and I do really like this film. Killing off Han Solo, my favourite character personally. I'm kind of salty just because he's my favourite character. They killed him off. I understand that like Harrison Ford wanted to die. Like, he wanted Han Solo to die because he didn't want to be in Star Wars anymore. I feel like if he was going to have a death scene, it should have been in battle. He should have gone out fighting. He shouldn't have died by, talking to his son and like letting his son turn on him. The Takodana battle, that was great. Loved that. The Raftar scene as well. Good. Loved that. And the opening scene was kind of good. Although all the good scenes in this film, it doesn't compare at all to the others we have coming up. Right, moving on from the sequels. Now we've got those out of the way. The next one was a hard decision. The next one was between between Attack of the Clones and New Hope, because I don't like putting A New Hope this far back. But I'm just gonna like show you. So the next one is A New Hope. I don't like putting it this far back because it's the original. It started everything. It's a beautiful film. It's really nostalgic and really memorable in starting the whole franchise. But it's just not as like, it's kind of slow as a film. It's kind of slow. The plot is great. The storyline is great. And the cinematography is great. But it's just kind of slow. Like, there's not too many action scenes in it. Trench run at the end, iconic, right? One of my favourite scenes in Star Wars ever. Loved that. The Jawas, of course, very funny. And all the Death Star scene. When Luke and Han sneak into the Death Star with their like Stormtrooper uniform. Trash compactor scene, iconic yet again. It's nowhere near like as bad as like the sequels. It may seem that way because I've put it right next to the sequels, but it's nowhere near as bad. It's like, it's on a whole nother level. Like, for example, if I was gonna rate them all out of 10, Force Awakens would be like a 6, 5.5, 6 at best. But then this would be like a 7, like a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10. I love this film. It's great. Okay? I just have to consider the other films that I have coming up, and the only reason it's this far back is because of it's quite slow. That's the only reason. Other than that, it's a great film. Love it, alright? Next up is Attack of the Clones. Now, the prequels were a big part of my childhood as well as the original trilogy was a massive part of my childhood. They were like, I watched them more than the prequels. But the prequels, especially Phantom Menace, still were really good and like big part of my childhood. Attack of the Clones only just beats A New Hope. Originally, it was going to be A New Hope in front of Attack of the Clones. But Attack of the Clones, I took a disliking to it for a couple of years, and I don't really know why. The Clone Troopers, the Clone Army, absolutely great. I love that. The scene where they're all like marching and stuff on Camino, that's awesome. Love that. They come to the Geonosis battle. That was a great scene as well. When the clones fly in, save everyone, and like all the Jedi as well. When they all turn up and they all start fighting everyone. Seeing all the Jedi in one place like that was truly iconic and great scene. Of course, we got Jango Fett as well. He's a great character. The whole Count Dooku scene at the end was great, and it's a really important film towards Anakin's character, because especially the scene where he goes off to save his mother, where he like launches off on the speeder. That is like a top level scene in Star Wars. That's one of my favourite scenes ever. He's up through the desert going to save his mum, and then when she dies and he kills all the Sand people, then he returns back to the homestead on Tatooine, and he's just such a mess, and you can see the anger in him starting to come out, and it's just really like powerful and shows how he became a bad guy. Great film, love it. All right. Next up is The Phantom Menace. Oh, The Phantom Menace is, I would say it's the most nostalgic film of the prequels, because it's the first film of the prequels that I watched properly, like all the way through. It's the first film of the prequels that I watched a lot, because I didn't watch Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith till a little bit later on in my childhood. Phantom Menace, it has a really nostalgic feel for me, and I love it. It gets a lot of slack, this film, and I've never understood why. It's really good in my opinion. I love it so much. Darth Maul, he's like one of the sickest characters ever. The opening scene where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are snuck onto the Trade Federation ship. That's really good. Loved that whole scene the whole way through. The battle droid army, like on Naboo, when they're fighting the Gungans. Such a iconic scene. Loved that as well. The whole end battle as well. We got Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul. Insane, right? We've got the Gungans versus battle droids, also insane. Then we got the space battle. Like those three scenes going on at the same time, it just made it really suspenseful. That's one of the good things that a film should have. Multiple things going on at the same time. Now, at the same time as that, also 4 things going on. You also have Captain Panaka and Padme like storming the Theed Palace and trying to capture Newt Gunray. That was really cool as well, when they're like fighting the battle droids and they like smash the glass, like they're on the window. The scenery of Naboo as well. I love it. It's so good. The pod race as well. Like, it's such an iconic scene. I've said a lot of scenes are iconic, but like the pod race, I can imagine seeing that. Right, this film is coming back out in the cinemas on like May 5th, and I cannot wait to see it in the cinemas. I'm definitely gonna go see it, right? And I absolutely can't wait. I can only imagine what it must have been like seeing the pod race in cinemas in 1999 for the first time, because there wouldn't have been many films with things like that in it at that point. I imagine it to be insane seeing the pod race for the first time. It was so good. But yeah, Phantom Menace, great film. I don't know why it gets slack at. I think it's also really nostalgic to me because when I used to play on my dad's Xbox 360, and it had the original Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga, the original one without the sequels in, so not the new one, the original one. I used to have that on it, and the level I used to play the most was like the first few levels of the Phantom Menace section, with like sneaking onto the control ship and getting to Naboo from the using the guns like little shit. I can't remember what it's called. The ship that goes underwater, like the submarine, but the guns. The Theed Palace duel as well it's just amazing. So I think that's why it has a nostalgic feel for me as well, as the whole just for film in general. But like playing the game as well, and this is the movie I used to play the most by far on that game. Phantom Menace, insane. Moving on to number 3, and it's important to note that before I move on to number 3, is that my top 3, I love all the films in it like pretty much equally. Like we're talking like a 0.1 difference between each of them. So like number 3 is like a 9.7, number 2 is like a 9.8, and number 1's like a 9.9. I like them all for like different reasons, if you get what I mean. It's like they're all great. I love them all pretty much equally, but it's all for like different reasons. They're all like quite different. So here we go. Number 3 is The Empire Strikes Back. Now this used to be my favorite Star Wars film, but I'll tell you why it's changed later. This is the second film I ever watched as a child. If you think that Phantom Menace gives me a nostalgic feel, this is like a whole nother level. It's such like a... It's like... Well, I'm gonna use wordplay now because it's like ice themed because of the Hoth scene and all that. It's a very warm and cozy film for me because the whole Hoth scene at the start, awesome. The Hoth battle gives me chills every time I watch it. The Bespin scenes with Cloud City, absolutely love Cloud City. That's like Bespin's my second favorite planet in Star Wars, I'd say. Endor's my first favorite. And Cloud City, I absolutely love it. I have the Lego set in my bedroom, and it's massive, right? It's worth like £900 now. It's not the original one. It's not the original Cloud City Lego set. It's like the 2018 one, I think. But it's massive. I love it. You can do all the scenes. Yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, Cloud City, I really love every scene from Cloud City, apart from when they bully Han Solo. Don't like that at all. What are you doing to my favourite character, huh? The Dagobah scenes as well. They're like... That might be why it's like very cozy to me, that film. Because of the Dagobah scenes. And Yoda's hut. It also really shows you Luke's like personality and characteristics as well. Because you can see that he's very impatient. And like Yoda, when he lifts up the X-Wing out of the swamp. Again, iconic. So it was so hard to put this at number 3, but as I said, I like them all for different reasons, and the score as well. Like I love the Bespin theme, the Cloud City theme, and the Hoth battle theme, and it's also really nostalgic as well because like I used to play Battlefront a lot as a child, like the first Battlefront, and all the I used to love the Hoth maps especially. I used to play the Hoth maps all the time, and like the Hoth battle on like the skirmish ones, and if you know, you know. And yeah, and also on the original Lego Skywalker Saga, I used to like playing the Hoth battle on there. That's Empire Strikes Back. On to number 2, which is Revenge of the Sith. This is a lot of people's first. A lot of people don't like when people put this at like 2nd or 3rd place in their rankings. Everything about this film is insane. It's perfect. It's not as nostalgic as like Phantom Menace and Empire Strikes Back. I never watched it a lot as a child. That's why it's not as nostalgic. Watching it as I grew older, and like, it helps you to understand and like pay attention to Anakin's character arc and like how it progresses to the dark side because of like being lured and tempted by Palpatine. And it's also the darkest film of Star Wars in my... I'm not saying that I like the good guys to lose all the time, but it's like, it just makes it more emotional. And like the Order 66 scene, very emotional. And like, when Anakin storms the Jedi Temple, as much as that scene is epic and like sends chills through my body whenever I watch it, also very emotional. The opening scene with the battle over Coruscant and like saving like the battle with Count Dooku. That whole opening scene, like with them like landing, running up to like them landing the invisible hand, Grievous's ship, on Coruscant. That entire opening scene is just like perfect. It's also another scene I used to play a lot on the Skywalker Lego game, Skywalker Saga. I used to play the Coruscant battle all the time, and like yeah, I love like the score as well for this film is insane. I love, and it really adds to what you're seeing. Like, I feel like in films, most of the time, music is just backing tracks are just what make the scene like 10 times better if you have good music to accompany it with. And that's why, like, you know, Anakin's theme, the duel on Mustafar as well, everyone knows that, and it's amazing. And then, yeah, you got the theme behind that as well. Like, one of the scenes I love the most is when Obi-Wan goes, he knows where, no, it's when Obi-Wan says to Padme, "I'm so sorry." And like the music that comes with that, and then it cuts to Anakin standing on the balcony on Mustafar with his hood up, like crying. Like that one scene, just thinking about it makes me like, God, it's so powerful and so good. I also really love the Kashyyyk battle scene as well. And like all the the Kashyyyk clone troopers, I love those. We've got Obi-Wan versus Grievous. I also love the Utapau troopers as well, the 501st troopers. The clone troopers in this film are just great, alright? I love them, not because they kill all the Jedi, but I just like the design of them and like all the different variants we see throughout the film. But yeah, this entire film is a masterpiece. It's perfect. That's something I forgot to mention. That one scene as well, where Luke's just... It's such a classic scene where he's looking out to the twin suns setting on Tatooine. But that scene, it's just... It's... So I could ramble on about this film all day, but that's Revenge of the Sith. Now we're on to my favourite Star Wars film, which if you know all the Star Wars films, you'll know, because it's the only one I haven't done yet. But this film only just outweighs the other two, Revenge of the Sith and Empire Strikes Back. It only just outweighs, because this, for me, is the true ending to Star Wars. Like, forget Rise of Skywalker, that was shit, ending. This is the true ending, where Luke's walking, and he's Yoda and Obi-Wan, and then Anakin appears there as a Force ghost. That's just like, that is the true ending for Star Wars. And when they're all like the Ewok party as well. Endor, as you know, is my favourite planet, as I've mentioned. And the Ewoks are... They've got to be my favourite species, or at least in the top 3 of my favourite species. Like, the whole Endor scene is just like... It's so nostalgic to me, because the music that accompanies that scene is so cozy to me. I know I've said a lot of things are cozy today, but it's just true, right? Because I used to have a CD of like the original trilogy, like the most iconic songs from the original trilogy. I used to have that when I was like 6 or 7. I remember listening to it in the car, and the Ewok theme was on there, like that. And that one piece of music is another piece of music that can just take me back to my childhood. It just reminds me of We've got the space battle, which is great. I love that. The Endor battle is... I think it's just a little bit better than the Hoth battle, in my opinion. Yeah, the Endor battle is probably my favourite battle in Star Wars. And the space battle that's going on with Lando in the Millennium Falcon going into like the Death Star, the second Death Star, and blowing it up. That was just such a good ending, and I hate how they had that as not being the ending. But yeah, that should have been the true ending to Star Wars, in my opinion. Yeah, this is my favourite Star Wars film, and my second favourite film of all time. If you want to watch my my other video about my top 15 favourite films, It'll be on the end screen and how could we forget the final duel between Darth Vader and Luke? This scene right here, alright, is one of my favourite scenes in Star Wars ever. And I have it in the Lego diorama. But, yeah, this scene, it's just like, although it may not be the best lightsaber duel, it was such a good ending and death of Palpatine, which was also retconned in Rise of Skywalker. Shit. And then it, like, at the end of it, like Darth Vader turning back to the good side, which is great. And it's such like an emotional battle as well when he says, like, when he starts taunting Luke, and then Luke's like, he screams, and then he starts like, it's just it's so emotional. And when he stops fighting his father and lets Palpatine just like force lightning, and then Darth Vader saves Luke and kills Palpatine and turns back to the good side. Yeah, that should have been the ending to Star Wars. Forget Rise of Skywalker. That is the true ending to Star Wars. Another one of my favourite scenes in Star Wars is the speeder chase as well, with the scout. This film also gives me nostalgia because, well, as well as playing it a lot on the Lego Star Wars game, I also played it a lot on Battlefront. I played the Endor map, which was great, and I have like all these old vintage Star Wars toys that used to be my dad's in my loft, and I used to play with them all the time, and a good like 60% of them are probably from Return of the Jedi. And I got like Ewoks, I've got Scout Troopers, I've got the speeder bikes. I used to recreate the Endor scene like every day as a child, and that's another reason why it just takes me back to my childhood. So yeah, Return of the Jedi, by far, well, I'm saying by far, it's my favourite Star Wars film, followed like very closely with Revenge of the Sith and Empire Strikes Back, but this just outweighs it with a couple more scenes that I like, that I've already talked, but this just about outweighs them. And again, I could ramble on about this all day, but I don't have all day. So, yeah, that is my Star Wars ranking. Thanks so much for watching this Star Wars ranking. Let me know if you want me to do like a ranking including like films like the Clone Wars film, Rogue One film, Solo. Let me know if you want me to do a ranking with the Star Wars TV shows as well. I can also do that, like Clone Wars, Obi-Wan, Andor. Yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you agree with my ranking, and also let me know your Star Wars ranking. Star Wars is basically my life, my favourite franchise ever. Absolutely love it, and I'm sure many of you do. If you want to check out my top 15 movie ranking, it'll be down there on the end screen, and comment down below any other rankings you'd like to see me do. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.